Welcome to Books on Air, the podcast that you just can't put down. I have a question for you. What do cats, dogs, toads, and snacks have to do with fun and adventure? I don't know. Stay tuned and find out. You're about to get a sneak peek at what goes on behind the scenes with authors. We'll find out their secret recipe for creating a book, where they get their ideas, and you'll get the inside scoop on their next project. Want to know more? We'll tell you where to find them on social media. Ready? Okay, let's meet the author. Today I'm talking with Eartha Powell. Eartha, welcome.
Thank you.
You are extraordinary. You and I have been talking for about a half an hour before we started this interview because you're so interesting and you've done so many things. You were in the Navy and you were a nurse educator in the Navy. And the first thing I want to do is thank you for your service. I never realized that there were nurse educators in the Navy. Would you tell me a little about that?
Yes, it's my honor to serve. The nurse educator is a specialty in itself and not so particular in the Navy. It's a national type of specialty as a certification. And usually, as a nurse or a lot of different professions, you find your niche. And my niche is teaching. And so my professional organization, the American Nursing Professional Development, is part of an organization for certifying nurses who are interested in doing professional development. And so I took that and got that certification so that when I'm teaching nurses when I was in the Navy, I'm giving them my best and making sure that, my information is researched and is valid. And then I continued that when I got out of the Navy.
You're very creative. Have you always been a writer? Has that just been something that's you've done throughout your life?
I've always, even when I was a little girl, I always liked to make up stories. I think a lot of children do. It was my pastime. Before I could write, I would come up with these stories, and my mother would say, "Where are you getting these stories from?" I said, "I just make them up in my head." And so, I don't think that's my personality. But as I got, older and matured, I always had that desire to write, but I never had a chance to. It never had the time, it seemed, because then I got involved with, writing different reports for work. And so I've always had that desire and to write for children, particularly.
Actually, it was the impetus of your daughter that really got you to write this book. Is that right?
Yes.
Tell us that little story. I love that story about her.
Oh, yes. I would tell stories, bedtime stories, and, I would try to read her other, books and things like that, and she loved it. But I would try to tell stories that involved her, and I think a lot of parents sometimes do that. But, she would just say, "Mommy, tell that story again. Tell that story again." And after a while, she said, "Mommy, you should write these things down." And it's like, yeah, I don't know. And so, but she sparked something, it's like, maybe I should write these down. And so I began to, draft out things and I would watch how she would play and, everything was a big adventure for my daughter, and so I did start, she was a very strong motivator for me to start putting what I loved and put it into action.
Now, you have a son, Zachariah.
Yes. Zachariah he's my Flash. I call him Flash. He has ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. That's what this is called. And so, he has people say, wow, he sure has a lot of energy. Well, he does have a lot of energy. And we are helping him learn how to channel his energy and to use his creativity. So that's my little Zachariah.
we need to talk about what do cats, dogs, toads, and snacks have to do with fun and adventure. I don't know. That's a part of the book. And the title of your book is actually, I Don't Know, Adventures of a Forest Playground. What gave you the idea for this book?
The I Don't Know, Adventures of a Forest Playground. When Zachariah, he's 8 now, but when he was little, he is very, very curious. And from one thing to another and one thing to another. And I just watched him. We would go to the park and we would go in the backyard. And I just saw how in his little world, it was a big adventure. And I didn't know. I didn't know a lot. I didn't know how I could help him channel his energy, but I did know that his world was a big playground. And so I took different elements. The book is artfully represented by my illustrator, Andrea Strongwater, with trees and backyard type of adventure, like a forest. And so I built on that. I saw Zachariah because, he's so fast and he would just run and explore. And so I took that experience and say, I'm going to make this very positive. And what kind of story can I write? The title is kind of odd. I don't know, but that's what stood out. I don't know. And from his perspective, everything was a playground, a forest,
and an exploration. The I don't know part to me is about is a child quality. I mean, kids don't know so much, and so they're always curious and they're always looking. And I grew up that way too. I'm an only child, and so as an only child, I think you view the world differently than people who have siblings because there's nobody there to explore with. So you sort of explore by yourself. And I can remember, climbing up in trees, and I can remember riding a stick horse and pretending like it was my horse. And I can remember tying a towel around my neck and running through the yard and those kinds of things. And I identify with what you're talking about with Zachariah. But his energy level was so much higher because of the ADHD. Do you think that your background as a nurse educator, and then you have 2 master's degrees, one in human resources and one in organizational development, do you think that colored, influenced the way that you looked at what Zachariah was doing, and you started doing research around ADHD and the way those children work and how their world works? Because I think that nurse educator, inquisitive person would do exactly that. Start picking up those books or looking online or flipping over rocks here and there to try to discover new ideas and new truths. Is that what happened?
I could tell you, with my master's, I just have one. It's in human resource development and with an emphasis on organizational development. And that process of wanting to learn, as a nurse and as an educator was there. But I have to tell you, as a nurse, when it's your own, you forget a lot, because my mommy gene was stronger than my nurse gene.
Oh, I love it.
And, I felt like, I'll just be very, very open. I felt like I was in a swirling pool and I was going down, Yeah. And I thought, I am alone here. Nobody else has any children like this. And, Zachariah, my son is such a blessing. My daughter is such a blessing. And I do sincerely believe one of my things my mother always said, that God doesn't give you more than you can handle. And so I had to ask God to help me. If you don't give me, I was praying, more than I can handle, then this must be something that I need to change. I need to change my perspective. I need to start learning how how I can help Zachariah and help my daughter, and maybe see how things can be a little bit better, and stop my feeling of being swirled down in this endless pit. And that's why I start reading. I start looking at, I didn't want to rely on people telling me, oh, this is what's going to happen with your son. This is what's going to happen to your child. I wanted to find out for myself. And I stumbled across many, many different books about, how, the brain changes and how the frontal lobe is immature, and the influence of positivity in changing the brain, and that there's different exercises. And I read a book about, the lady who changed her brain, and how, at first she had different learning disorders. And I started reading those books, and I saw hope. And then I saw that I can be a better mommy. I want to be a better mommy. And I started trying these things, the things that I was researching about how to help, Zachariah, and how to teach him when he was earlier in his preschool years. And these things were working. And I was so thankful that I was able to, find those resources. And inevitably, it's not just Zachariah, it's any child, because most people who have children, that when your child, especially in the young years, they are very energetic.
Right. And I think that you have so eloquently summarized how a parent would feel when they have an ADHD child, because you're so submerged. It's just like we talked about earlier. You're so submerged in your own life and your own family and your own child that you have to think nobody else has a kid like this. That's not true, but that's how it's got to feel. And I love the way that you said that and how well you put that. You're so eloquent. And the fact that you started to do the research and that you started to discover that there are things that work. Now, you have also started a company around all of these ideas. Let's talk about your company that you've started.
Okay, I started a program, and it's called Transition Awareness Breathing, and I call it TAB for short. And what it is I teach children how to, meditation and mindfulness and relaxation, and also I have some studies in motivational interviewing, and so I also, when I talk to these children, I help them bring out the positive reflection from themselves, because a lot of times when children who have any kind of concentration, issues or things like that, they're always in the world of no. No, don't stop that. No, stop running around. No, why can't you just do this? No. And so that all those no's build up, and they have a storage of no in their brains. And so a lot of times these children, they haven't been exposed to a lot of positive inner talk. And so in TAB, Transition Awareness Breathing, I teach them about relaxation breathing, about mindfulness, being aware of themselves, how they do have tools that they can calm themselves. And also I include the parents, that you are not alone. I started this because of Zachariah. And I was talking to one of the mothers of my child's school, and I was talking to her, just like we're talking here, and she said, Eartha, you should teach this to other children. And I said, nah, who's going to listen to me? Well, lo and behold, she says, Eartha, you will never know. There are many, many parents who would love to have a resource and have their children learn things that you're teaching. And so that's how that got started.
Now, you actually did this at Zachariah's school, is that right?
Yes.
How did that go?
It's until we came down into the lockdown, it was going pretty well.
Yeah, I know. I think that's so exciting. Eartha. I
Yes,
just think that's so exciting.
I started it at the beginning of the school year, and I have a kindergarten group, and then another day is an older group, and I got so many responses because I keep the class sizes small that I also started a weekend group because the parents was like, well, whenever you open up another class, can we register? So I just opened up a weekend class. So I was running 3 classes, and it was wonderful. My students, we have a positive song, and what we do is craft, and then they get a lot of reward. And those rewards that I built into the program is to build that positive cognitive awareness that when they accomplish something, how it feels to do something good. When we doing our mindfulness breathing, we take one step at a time. We do mindfulness eating. They get snacks, and before you swallow that raisin or whatever apple, pay attention. Is it soft? Is it hard? Is it crunchy? Is it sweet? And so they sit there and they're so cute as they're munching their snacks and they're looking, and then they tell me, I'm mindfully eating, Miss Eartha, and they take that home. And so that is the beauty of it. These children take what they learn, they go home, and then they tell their families.
Eartha, this is so exciting. I just admire you so much. You have taken something that people would just look at and go, oh, I just can't get out of this. I don't know what to do. You have taken something that could have been a negative, and you have just not turned it just into a positive for your family, your children, but you're willing to share this with other people. And I love it that you're changing the lives of these children and you're changing the lives of the parents. And the fact that you talked about these children live in the world of no. Wow, that is absolutely a perfect way to put it. I know that our listeners are sitting there thinking, okay, where can I find out more about what Eartha is doing? I know you have a website and a Facebook page and all kinds of things. So let's tell them, first of all, about the website.
Okay. My website is called, you can access it through H2ST Readers, and that stands for Head, Heart, Finger, and Toe Readers. So, when a child is exploring, they explore with their head and their heart and their fingers and their toes, and that's where that name came from. So I shortened it to H2FTRreaders.com. And when you go visit that site, you'll see right there in the header, transition awareness, breathing, as well as a lot of different activities just to explore, education activities for reading and games and blogs. I have also done some interviewing with my son's music teacher, Miss Rosalia, and she did a wonderful interview with me a few years ago about how music influences a child's development. And so those things are on my website.
Now you have a Facebook page as well.
Yes. And you can find me on Head, Heart, Finger, and Toes at Head, Heart, Finger, and Toes at H2FT Readers, and that you'll or Eartha Powell, and you'll find my other Facebook page, and you'll see it. It'll say Transition Awareness Breathing. And there's a green type of a tree breathing in the air and things like that. So, also I have a Twitter, and I a lot of times my Twitter and my Facebook page, I have little clips on there. Just especially in this current situation, I've been developing some short clips to help people to bring a little joy. Speaking about being positive, because many times when we're in a situation, a crisis situation, where we feel hopeless, or being positive really has a a positive influence in our health and in the chemicals that's released in our brain. So I made a few clips, and you can find that on Twitter and on Instagram. Instagram, you can find me at H2FT Readers. So that H2FT Readers I made it pretty consistent so that then it's not too hard to find.
It strikes me, I want to make sure that our listeners understand that you and I are talking in the middle of the coronavirus pandemic that's sweeping the country. And one of the things that's going through my mind as we're talking about this, two things. First of all, a lot of parents have children at home for an extended period, and they're looking for things to do with their children. Your website, your Facebook page, your Twitter account, all of those places would give them additional ideas. These are things that would just work with kids. Secondly, if there are parents out there who are homeschooling their children, this to me would be such a valuable contact point and such a valuable source of information for homeschool parents to add to their curriculum. I mean, it just sounds wonderful to me. I'm a former educator as well. I taught high school English, so I'm right there.
I admire you.
Well, my master's degree is in education, and so I'm sitting here listening to you, and everything that you're saying is just reverberating and vibrating in my educator brain. I think if you've ever taught school, ever been involved in the educational system in any way, it changes the way that you think about things. And I just think you're doing such wonderful work with all of this. And I love it that the start of this wonderful idea and these wonderful activities was all your kids. They were the leverage point. They were the place where the jumping off took place and encouraged you to dive into these waters. So, wow. I just love what you're doing. Let's give them... Go ahead.
Can I just add, as far as homeschooling, I just want to offer the listeners, everybody's homeschooling now.
Right.
And that is, around the world. And so hopefully... the listeners, I'm talking to you parents, your moms and your dad, just know that you're not alone and take a deep breath. And that's on the website and how to take that breath.
Good. I want to also make sure that we tell them where they can find the book. Now, your name is Eartha, Eartha, Powell, Powell. And if our listeners just go to Amazon, I did this, and the book's right there. If they just go to Amazon and in that top search feature, if they just put in your name, or if they put in the name of the book, which is I Don't Know, Adventures of a Forest Playground, and click on that, it comes up, and there's a picture of the book, the cover, and there's a little short description, and they can buy it right there. They can buy a Kindle version. They can buy a hardback version. Can they go to your website and find it on your website as well?
Yes, they'll find it, and it will direct you back to Amazon. And also you can purchase it from Mascot Books, my publishers.
Perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Our time is running out, and I always like to let the author and educator have the last word. What thoughts would you like to leave our listeners with today, Eartha?
I would like to, in our situation, we're in this virus. I want our listeners to know that you're not alone. We are in the same boat together. And I want to offer you tools that be positive, breathe in your nose, out your mouth, and try to think of positive things that you can do with your children and your family. And that's what the book can offer. To take time to read, I don't know, Adventures of a Forest Playground. We can be a childlike, be children with our children, in that we can explore this new situation that we're in, to explore. And the next thing is to listen. And, you know, we're in a situation where at home with our children, we can really listen to them and see the beauty and the gifts and their imaginations that they have. And that causes us to build new relationships. So when we come out of this, and we will come out of this, we will be at a different level, a better level. And so I just really appreciate you having me here, and I just welcome all the listeners to visit my Facebook page and my website, and to participate in these little short exercises that I have them there. And you know, my heart goes out to everyone, and particularly those who have lost loved ones during this time. You know, thank you for having me.
Oh, Eartha, it's an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for your vision and for being with us today at this difficult time in everyone's lives, and bringing this spark, flame of hope to parents in this time when they're home with their children. If they choose to homeschool later, I just think the whole idea of mindfulness and the meditation of a raisin and those kinds of things are things that parents need, and I think they'll be amazed at what happens when they bring this into their lives. So thank you so much for being my guest today here on Books on Air.
Thank you so much for having me.
You've been listening to Books on Air, brought to you on webtalkradio.net. By the way, you can find our podcasts on iTunes and iHeartRadio. I'm Suzanne Harris. Join me next time for our Books on Air podcast. It's the place to be.